Welcome to the Tennessee STEM Redesignation Process Series webinar. Today we're focusing on component 3, which is Futurecasting. If you're joining us for the first time, we have pre-recorded the redesignation process timeline as a whole, and we've also recorded component 1, which is the growth timeline, and component 2, which is artifacts. So we'll make sure that schools have access to those previous recording, but today we are specifically honing in on component 3. My name is Krista McQueen. I'm the STEM Relationship Manager with the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network. Make sure that you snag my email address. It will also be on the very last slide. But as your schools embark on this journey, I'll be your point of contact throughout the redesignation process. Today, we will break down component number 3. We'll look at the roadmap to redesignation, the scoring protocol for this particular component, and some additional supports that have been put in place as your school works through redesignation. We also know that a lot can happen in 5 years. And with this redesignation process, it's really your school's opportunity to showcase how STEM and STEAM culture has supported your school over time. And really the goal of this process is to outline what has occurred in your school during that 5-year period since you have earned a STEM designation and how STEM has been a part of your educational identity. We first have to revisit the designation process, and the Tennessee STEM and STEAM designation process was truly created to award and recognize schools that are exemplars of the work and the different STEM initiatives that are happening within those buildings. And once a school has earned designation, the certification is valid for 5 years. And after 5 years, we will encourage schools to reapply for STEM and STEAM school designation in order to verify that the primary focus for learning still remains centered around STEM and STEAM principles. In getting started, as you embark on this journey, preparing for redesignation, wanted to highlight a couple of things that you can locate to help you get started. And one of those is finding your school's original designation application and your original feedback form. Now, we don't have access to school's original designation application because we're no longer using that platform, but we do have school's final feedback form. So if your school cannot locate that, please feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send your school's feedback form. But with those documents, you're going to review those documents and highlight areas of strengths and weaknesses. So you're going to look over everything that's happened within the last 5 years that you've been a designated school and identify areas of strengths and weaknesses. You're also going to want to look at and revisit the STEM Action and Sustainability Plan. Knowing that this plan has been with you for the last 5 years, you probably have made adaptations, revisions along the way over the last 5 years. So seeing how those changes have complemented you over the last 5 years. And you're really going to let those previous scores and feedback be the driver in completing this redesignation application. So let's move into component number 3, which is Futurecasting. And with Futurecasting, schools up to this point in the redesignation process have really shared with us where they've been over a 5-year period. And in this point, in this section, schools are going to tell us where they are going. So again, up to this point, we've talked about what STEM and STEAM has looked like the last 5 years that you've been a designated school. And in this component, you're going to tell us what it's going to look like in the next 5 to 10 years, thinking about how you will move your school forward. And schools have total creativity in navigating this portion. The redesignation review team will be able to see where your school plans to move within the next 5 to 10 years. Those goals, dreams, big ideas that your team is able to establish, goals should be able to reflect items that have been listed in your action and sustainability plan. So always referencing back to that document and making sure that those new ideas complement that plan. Really, this component of the application is made up into 4 different topics, and these are all completed in narrative forms. We are no stranger to narratives. Our original designation application had narratives throughout, and there are several points in the redesignation process where you will be asked to complete in a narrative form. So this particular section will focus on STEM leadership, school identity, innovate, and modeling. And we're going to break each of these 4 components down. So schools will answer the following prompts around the STEM leadership team. There are 3 particular questions. If you have experienced leadership change, what is your plan to secure the growth of STEM education? What professional learning programs do you or your faculty participate in to continue the growth of STEM education? What grants has your school secured to support STEM learning? So this particular piece kind of helps lay the foundation, and then we will move into that 5 to 10-year process. So now we move into school identity. There are 4 prompts here. How do you plan to increase STEM awareness in your school, district, region, community, and beyond? What type of professional development will you attend and implement to help spread STEM to those areas? So thinking back to how can STEM be spread across the school, the district, the region, and the community? Number 3, what are your plans to extend STEM beyond the walls of your school? And 4, how do you ensure that underrepresented groups are participating in STEM learning experiences? Number 4 in this component is innovate. Schools will answer the following prompts. 1, how do you plan to continue implementing STEM in order to integrate across your cross-curricular elements so that it does not become an isolated program? Number 2, what type of new spaces do you plan to create or modify to accommodate more STEM activities? And number 3, how will the STEM-focused funding from the Tennessee Department of Education impact your efforts moving forward? So this really gets us thinking about the PBLs in our building and how we can elevate those in the next 5 to 10 years, thinking about our school environment and the different spaces that we have, and then thinking about how we've been utilizing those STEM-focused fundings that have come from the Tennessee Department of Ed. The last piece is modeling. There are 2 particular questions in this section. Number 1, what type of collaboration do you plan to do with other schools, business, and community members to help continue the expansion of your program? And number 2, what events do you plan to host and or attend in order to replicate or complement as part of your program? So really thinking about how you're going to be able to elevate the community members and businesses and other schools in your area over the next 5 to 10 years. And then, we all know that touring designated schools really help us find new ways to push new things forward and new initiatives out. So thinking about how you can create an event that allows that to happen. So let's recap some of the components of component number 3, which is, again, is Futurecasting. So you will want to spend time in your STEM action plan to ensure that your future goals are complementary. You'll want to utilize your entire faculty when brainstorming these new goals and thinking about where you're going to be in 5 to 10 years. And remember that no dream is too big to discount. When we ideate, we want to throw everything that we can out on the board and then start drilling down to that realistic action steps that we can move forward and push forward with. So the only piece that I'm going to point out here, because our next webinar scheduled is component number 4, where we talk about scoring and feedback. But I did want to point out the Futurecasting portion, since that is what we're talking about today. Futurecasting is made up of 4 components here: leadership, identity, changes, and modeling. And you can see that we have kind of condensed the scoring down, knowing that you're used to seeing early, developing, accomplishing, and model. We have condensed it down to meets requirements or not meets requirements. So it's either going to be 0 points or 1 point. So you can see here that we are looking for 4. So you either addressed all 4 components under the Futurecasting narratives, or you did not address those components, and you will get either a 1 point or a 0 point for that. We look at scoring as a whole. Elementary and middle schools have the opportunity to earn a total of 16 points. They must earn 14 out of those 16 to earn redesignation. And then high schools have the opportunity to earn a total of 17. Schools must earn a total of 15 out of those 17 in order to earn redesignation. So as you can see, this kind of breaks down how we got to those numbers. Infrastructure component, reflection, Futurecasting, and timeline, you can see is 3 points possible. And that's because if we go back, you can see that there are 3 major components here, that's what makes up that 3. And in the curriculum and instruction section, the PD section, achievement, and community partner section are scored with the original designation rubric in mind. So you know that curriculum and instruction has 7 pre-attributes within it. So that's where we get 7. And then PD, achievement, and community partners all only have 2 sub-attributes within those. So that's also where those numbers come from. When we think about the roadmap to designation, this just gives you a high-level overview of this process. And thinking about prior to your redesignation year, meeting with your leadership team, gathering those important documents that you can review and highlight those strengths and areas of weaknesses and major areas of growth, and then looking at your STEM action and sustainability plan. As you move into the intent to apply is opening in January and the application open in January, schools will really have from January to September to complete those major components of the redesignation application. And then you'll submit the application in September. So we will, the redesignation review team will take October through November to really review those applications. And then we'll start scheduling site visits in December. Notifications will come that following January. So it really is a January to January process. I did throw in a couple of FAQs that we get often when we talk about redesignation. So the redesignation is housed on a platform called Slide Room. Very user-friendly. We will send you all the instructions on how to get that account up and running when it is the appropriate time for your school to go through redesignation. And I'm sure that you have heard us referencing STEM or STEAM a lot, and that is because we have made the shift into allowing schools to self-select whether they want to be STEM or STEAM. And you also have that capability. So when you're looking at the growth and areas of weakness and areas of strengths over the last 5 years that you have been a designated school, if you are able to identify where the arts have truly been integrated into that timeline, then you are free to self-select whichever you feel fits the needs of your building. We will cut the guesswork out of when that your school is supposed to reapply for redesignation. We will invite schools personally to the redesignation process at the appropriate time, knowing that when you earn designated, it is good for 5 years, and then you will be encouraged to reapply, and we will formally send those invitations to you. Again, make sure you locate those original application and important documents revolving around your feedback, because they really will be the driving force behind this redesignation process. We also will recognize redesignated schools at the Tennessee STEM Innovation Summit, just as we do designated schools, knowing that you will be notified in January. We will put together some type of press release and be able to celebrate you then, but we will also share in the glory with the commissioner at the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network in May as well. We are rolling into our very last series with this particular redesignation series, component number 4, which we'll be talking about site visits and scoring, just really understanding what that site visit will look like when we think about the redesignation process. And there is a new scoring protocol that you were able to get into a little sneak peek of. So just really breaking those two pieces down. That webinar is scheduled for September 15th, and it will run from 3:30 to 4:30 Central Time. Again, as your school goes through this process, please know that we are here for you. Please feel free to jot down my email. I also have open office hours all the way up through December. That office hour link can also be found on our website. If you go to the designation page at the bottom, there is a redesignation page, and you can find my open office hour link there as well. We appreciate your time. Again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.